changes it by saying, oh, he says, I must restate what the Delphic oracle meant. Well, whether the Delphic oracle meant that or not, it certainly wasn't what the Delphic oracle said. That is, that no one is wiser. Socrates said, well, I think I know what the Delphic oracle meant. What he really meant to say is that no man is wise and the gods alone are wise. That's a great statement, but was that the original statement? Yeah, no.
What impact did this have then?
Well, pardon me?
What impact did this have on the state shortly thereafter, maybe in a little longer term, if it carried?
From some people who read history, I have been told that this kind of affidavit was never again written. This ended these kinds of affidavit. But I don't know whether that's true, you know. Historians say that after this kind of affidavit written by Meletus and Anytos, no further charge like this was ever filed against a person. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Did they seem regretful after they issued the death sentence?
There's the dialogue that follows this. There are two dialogues that follow this that pick up that theme. One is the Credo, and the other is the Phaedo. And in the Credo, time has passed, and therefore there's time for reflection in the state. And Credo, quite wealthy and old friend of Socrates, comes to the jail and says, look, we have everything paid. The jailer has been paid. Everybody has been paid off. Everyone has had a kind of second thought. You can just walk out that gate right now, leave your cell. There's a boat in the harbor. Say goodbye to all your friends. Get on board, and you're free. So yes, there is a sense from the Credo that there was a second thought about it, and perhaps they judge rashly. Yeah. At least that's one way to measure it.
Ironically, I was wondering, if you say that he's no one is wiser, and that comes from the Delphic oracle, and he actually ended up believing in the state, which would be believing in that Delphic oracle.
He ended up believing in the Delphic oracle?
I said if he did, then he would be believing, I take it, in what the state believe in.
Yeah.
Which means that there is no one wiser than himself.
If he believed it, that would be one of the consequences.
Which?
Thank goodness he didn't.
No, I just wondered.
Yeah.
I just thought it was ironic. Funny, because they're the ones that are claiming that because he doesn't.
Because he does?
Well, he doesn't believe in the gods of the state. And
well, I don't think there's evidence that he does not believe in the gods of the state. I think there's sufficient evidence that there were many opportunities for him to declare that he did believe in one of the gods of the state and chose not to, even in his own defense.
There's definitely a difference between his belief in God and the accuser's belief in God.
That's what he says himself. Yes, quite true.
How do you know it's Athena? Where is it that you get the information that the god that Socrates would be looking toward would be Athena?
No, I didn't say. I was just making up some names,
Oh,
possibilities.
okay. Right.
Artemis,
I thought you were
Athena.
saying, so that's
No.
the one that
No.
You knew for a fact?
No, I used more than one.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any idea where chronologically the Delphic oracle, what they said about Socrates took place? I'm just wondering whether that happened before or after he has gone through all this conversation with the divine, or has that been happening his whole life?
Well, the voice had been with him from childhood.
From childhood.
We know that, right? Shaphiron has been dead a long while, he said, and therefore, a long while, whatever Socrates was at that time, minus a long while is the age one. But beyond that, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
So that's when he started his questioning then?
That's when he actively, yes. Yes, that's when he actively went around, because that's when he sought to disprove the oracle, and therefore he went around first to the political leaders, and then the poets, and then the workers. That's right. So it looks early, doesn't it? Yeah, but how early, I don't know.
Is this sort of analogous to the mythology of Jesus Christ? Because I know he sort of went around, saying he believed in one God. All these people were following him around. Then he went before Pontius Pilate or something. There was a judgment. Blah blah blah. The guy sort of said, well, I follow God. Da 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 da. All this stuff. So,
Yeah. They're both trials, but this is a lengthy defense. And of course, we don't have that on the side of the day of Jesus. But there are certain similarities there. One is, of course, that biggest one is whether or not Socrates is a martyr. Yeah, martyr is usually when you die for a belief.
he must have died in defense of something, right? He took up post defending philosophy. Well, you probably argue the same way for Jesus Christ, probably.
Well, it'd be interesting, you see, to take a look at the last words of Jesus and the last words of of Socrates in the Phaedo. The last words of Socrates in the Phaedo are, he pulls down the blanket that was covering his face just as the poison is creeping up, and he says, Crito, he calls his friend Crito, and he says, we owe a cock to Asclepius, make sure it's paid.
Make sure it's paid.
Yeah. And Jesus, of course, his last words is, my God, why hast thou abandoned me, right? Forsaken me.
Mm-hmm.
So
According
in that
to
respect, they're
which
different.
myth?
Pardon me?
According to which myth? Because there's multiple versions of the
Of the
death, Jesus' death
oh
scene.
yes,
So
of course.
there is other
Yeah,
ones
that's
which
right.
don't
Yeah, that was in
have
one.
that ending.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
That's
What
right.
is it?
That's
What's the
right.
other ending?
isn't it? It's over. Isn't that? I can't remember which
That's in
gospel
one.
has that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one which I like. I mean, and it's basically the same.
And Mark doesn't have anything at that
right,
point.
but it's
Yeah.
the same idea of
Yeah.
the cock. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
over.
that one that you mentioned, why hast thou forsaken me? That made me think about how Socrates talks about death in the Phaedo, and he says, if one has been practicing death their whole life, why should they fear when it finally comes around? And right before he dies, or Jesus dies, it says, why hast thou forsaken me?
Wait a second. You're taken
like
out
that's
of
a little
context.
bit
You're taken out of
fearful or
context.
something,
No,
right?
no,
Like,
no.
I don't want to die.
No, if you go back to the psalm that he's quoting, or the mythographer is quoting, that psalm ends up quite happily, if I remember rightly. So, in fact,
I don't know. What can you do with that quote? Why
the
hast thou
quote, no,
forsaken me?
the quote is from a psalm. So, whoever wrote that you have to take it back into context. I can't remember which psalm. I'll find out next week.
It's not in the gospel.
No, I'm saying, my God,
No,
my
it's a-
God,
it's
why
Psalms.
hast thou forsaken me, is a quote back to a certain psalm. So you have to look at that psalm, because that's just a reference. That's a quick way, and at the end of that psalm, as far as I know, is happy. So it is not a cry of, when we look at it out of context, we look at it as a cry of despair, but when we actually look at the end of that psalm, we see that no, it's a cry of victory.
Well, I'd like
Yeah,
to see
that's-
how that pans out.
That's one way. That's one way of dealing with it. Put it in the context of the Psalms. In the Phaedo, however, it would be. See, the only time you offer up a cock is when to Asclepius is when there's been a cure. So therefore, the last act of Socrates, or the last words he's making, is that, hey, Crito, there must have been some cure going on here, and if so, we owe a cock to Asclepius. We, oh, by the way, not I, we, and that's one of the interesting